What's good, coders? In this video, I'll be explaining the step-by-step process to creating this wonderful UI using React Native, and this runs both on iOS and Android. So here on the left, you see my Android device on the emulator, and we also have here on the right, which is my iOS device, and you can actually see this wonderful UI. So if you're new to the channel, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now let's get to the code. Okay, before we actually touch any code, I want to walk you through the mock of our data store that I have. So I've got three JSON folders over here. The first one is going to be like our profiles JSON, which is going to store my users' profiles data over here. Also have the gallery JSON, which is just the images that are going to be in my profiles feed. And also the discover people. These are the possible people I may know. So those are the JSONs that I have. And then now I'm gonna just head on and actually create like the actual components that we're gonna need. So the first component that I'm gonna create is my profile header component JSON file. The next one would be called discover component JS file, not JSON. Then the last one that we're gonna need is actually my fan counter component. So you can actually name these components to something that will actually make sense to you. Okay, so another thing that I'll actually want to set up is here in my layout. I just want this to actually, every time I actually save, I want it to start up in my profiles page, right? So this is going to be tabs/profile. Okay, so now I can go ahead and just minimize this. So you can see it's actually landing in my actual profile page, but I don't have anything in there, right? So how I go about actually now creating some stuff. So I'll just go to my actual profile page, which is this, and start doing the code over there, right? So what I'll need is my actual scroll view, right? So with this scroll view, I know that here I just want to enable scroll, right? So this should be coming from React Native. So scroll enable, this should be set up to true. And by default, this should be a vertical scroll. So the next thing that I would want to create over here is my actual styles, which is coming from style sheet from React Native. And here I'll actually have my actual styles. So I'll just start off with like the skeleton. So what I'm going to pass in over here is styles.container. Then within the styles.container, what I'm just going to set up is our status bar, because currently you can see over here it's actually light, and this background color of my actual header is also white. So I just want to set up like a proper status bar. So this is coming from React Native, and what I just need to do is my status bar color style should be set up to a dark content. So the moment I save that, you should be able to actually see the status bar over there. And then the next thing that I would want to set up is actually going ahead and displaying my actual profile header. So with this, what I'll just need over here is actually utilize this profile header component. And currently right now, we just have the JS file, but we haven't actually added any code in there, right? So how we can go about doing that is, okay, let me just fix this. This should be profile header component. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just use the shortcut, and that should actually create that component for me. So the moment I save this, go to my profile, just use profile header components. So let me just go ahead and just reload this, and this should actually now try to pick it up. So this is profile header component. So currently it's not actually picking it up. So let me just do this: import profile header component from, which is coming from this. So two dot components, and then this is profile header component. So this wasn't spelled correctly. So now let me actually verify the spelling over here. So this should be actually fixed. Okay, so this should also be component. So this is coming from profile header component, and instead of that, this is actually now breaking my code. But yeah, that's basically what I gonna do currently. So this is what I should have. So the moment it actually lands in there, it should be actually showing this. So now let me just go ahead and actually go to my profile page and actually see if everything is fine. This is profile. Yeah, so the first thing that I'm actually now showing is profile header component, which is what I have on that component, right? So the next thing that I'm actually going to do is actually now write up the code for that. So if I go to my profile header component, I'm actually going to create a view, right? And then within this view, I'm going to have like an image. So it's going to be a view inside a view. So within this view, I'm going to have an image. So this is a React Native image that's going to take in like a source. And this is going to take in like URL. And I'm going to pass it like some sort of like config, right? So this is going to pass like a config as an object. So config. And what I'm going to need over here is config.image. So config.image. Then we need to also set up like some sort of stylings for that. And this is going to be coming from styles.profile image. So let me just go ahead and actually add my styles. So for my actual styles, I'm going to be using styles sheet dot create, and this would be using this profile image object. Okay, so that's the first thing that we're going to need over there. So we also need a styles for this container, and this should be profile follower. So this is profile follow container, which is coming from styles. So this is coming from styles, and this should be styles dot profile follow container. Okay, so what you should be seeing currently is an error, and this is because the actual config image is undefined, which actually makes sense because what's actually happening here on my actual profile is that I'm using this component, but I'm not actually passing it any config. So what I will do is, since I'm actually using this data store, so on use effect, so I'm just going to use a use effect over here. So this is going to be called on initial load of that screen. So that's going to be set up to an empty array. So this is going to be set to profile data, and I'm going to be using require, And what I'm actually trying to get is this mock JSON file, which is going to be coming from this profile JSON. So this is the data I'm going to get. And I just need to also use state. So this is going to come from profile, set profile. So this is going to be set profile, which is going to equal to a use state, just coming from React. And I'm just going to initialize it to, no, just to now. And what I'm going to actually do here in this use effect is just set the profile to profile data. So basically that's what I'm going to need. And then right here in my config, I'm just going to pass it a profile. And then I also want to set up like some sort of like check, right? So this component should only render if the profile, right? This profile is not null. So the data in there is not null. So I'm just going to go ahead and actually now save this and see what actually happens, right? So if I were to come over here and actually just console log profile data, I should be seeing something. Alrighty, so what is actually happening right now? So I've got profile data dot image. Let's see what actually happens. So this is logging that image, and I'm actually passing in this data over here. But let me actually go to the component. So this is getting that source. Oh, this is probably because I haven't set up any stylings for that. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is create like a width of 60 and a height of 60 pixels and a border radius, which is actually not 60. This is gonna be 120 by 120 and a border radius of 60. So let's see what actually happens now, right? So so that's border, right? So this is border radius. So now this has actually like set out like our actual image that we need to render over there. So the next thing that I would want to do is just go ahead and add my actual profile, which is my followers container, right? So what I'm gonna do is on the side, I'm gonna have, so I'm just gonna set style, and that style should be styles dot follows container. Within this follows container, this is where I'm actually gonna put in like the actual fans counters component. So what's gonna happen is what I'm gonna show over there is the post count, followers, and followings count. So for that to be done, I actually now need to move forth to actually my fan counter component. So how I go about doing that is React Native functional export component. So okay, so this should be fine. So that would be a capital that. And if I were to utilize this now in my actual header, what's gonna happen is this. Okay, so what I then need to do is actually import that, but that's not using the correct path. That's not correct. Maybe I just need to reload. Just need to reload this and actually go ahead and go back there. And yeah, so basically it should be set up to that. Okay, this is fine. And if I'll go ahead and save, okay, you can see over here I've got my fans counter component. So this is all good, right? Don't mind this red squiggly line. I guess if I were to reload, if I were to run Command P, reload, that should remove that red squiggly line. So now let me just remove this. Okay, so what I'll then need to do over here is come to my actual fan counters component and actually create that component. So what I'm going to need over there is actually my view. So with this view, I'm going to set up my styles, right? So with my style, what I need to set up is constant styles equals to style sheet, which is coming from the React Native style sheet dot create. So I'm just gonna set up like my counter. So it's counter container. So with my counter container, what I just need to do is align my items to center. So wait up, before I actually do go ahead with the stylings, let me just set up like my actual so if I just say styles.counter container, right? So that would already align it to center. So what I just need to do is I'm going to have two text fields over here. So the first text field is going to be showing my actual counter. So I'm going to be passing in a prop, which is going to be counter, and another prop over here, which is just going to take in the description. So I'm going to have those two props that I'm going to pass in over there. But for now, I'll just put them as a string so you can actually see that UI. So you can see over here, I've got the counter and that description, right? But I want to set them up as those props. So, but let me just first set up the style. So this is going to be styles dot counter. Then the next one over here is going to come from style, which is equals to styles dot description. And then I need to set up those styles down here, right? So I'm just going to have a counter and a description. Okay, so for the counter, what I'm going to set up is a font size of 24 pixels. So this is going to take up 24 pixels, a font weight, which is going to be bold, and a color, it's just going to take up like a black color. And for my description, what I'm going to set up is my font size is going to be set up to 16 pixels, and my color is just going to be set up to this color. So I'm just going to give you this hex over there. And then if so this is coming from styles.description. So now you can actually see this over here, right? So basically that's what I'm going to need. But now I'm actually going to change this up to actually take the counter from those props, and that description should be coming from the actual props. Okay, so you shouldn't be actually seeing anything for now, but now I can actually go back to my profile headers component and actually fix stuff up. Okay, so if I were to actually like console log, and then I just say profile and config. So right over here, if you see this, we've got this followers array, which is what I should be using over here, right? So if I were to pass out this and say config.followers, and then I just take that first index and pass in counter like that, and then just pass in description like that, you should be actually seeing this getting displayed there, right? But what we actually need to do is actually dynamically render those. So we need to loop through that array and actually render those components. So how we go about doing that is, first and foremost, what we need to do is say the config.followers, want to say if that exists, and if this config.followers array's length, so if the length of that is greater than 0, and what we need to do is we want to map through. So we want to map through those followers, right? So that follow array. So how we go about doing that is we're going to use the item and the index. And this should be like an arrow function, which then returns this component. So now I can actually put this here. But what I'll need to do is, since I'm actually dynamically rendering this array of components, I need to set up like a key, like a unique key. So this is going to be set up to key, which is just going to be equal to that index. So if we did have like some sort of like user ID or just an ID to that, we can use that as a unique key. But since this is an array, we can just use that index. It's going to be unique because it's starting from 0 till however amount of elements in that array, right? So then the next thing that I'll need to change over here is just remove this and use item instead. So this is going to be items.counter, and this is also going to be item.description. So that should be actually showing everything. So if we were to go to this mockup data, so you'll see under followers, we've got these counter and description, which is post, followers, and following. So that's basically what we're rendering over there. And yeah, that's what we're gonna need. So the moment we've actually added my actual followers, we can go ahead and actually try to set up some actual stylings, right? So the first thing that we'd want to do is set up like our profile follows container styles. So for this, we're just going to set up like the flex direction of that. It's going to be set up to row to just horizontally align those things. And if we were to save that, you'll see that it's actually now set up to the flex direction set up to row. The next thing we'll do is just justify our content to space between, align our items to center, and just set up like a margin top, which is just gonna give it like 10 pixels, which should give it some breathing space over there. Okay, so once we've actually now set up that, the next thing that we'd want to do is now set up our actual follow container, right? So profile follows container. So with this profile follows container, which one is it? Let me just see. So we did set up like our profile follows container, right? So what we need to set up now is this follows container object, right? So what we'll need to do over there is just say flex direction should be set up to a row, and then we also want to set up like a column gap. So a column gap, we'll just give it like 20 pixels. So that should actually like set it out all proper. And then yeah, basically this should space it up like 20 pixels. Then the next thing we'd want to do is actually set up like the padding horizontal for the actual profile screen. So how we go about doing that is coming over here. We know that we've set up a profile container. So if we go to profile container over here and set up padding horizontal to 16, that should give it like a padding of 16 to the left and right. Okay, so what else do we need over here in our profile header? We know that we've showed our actual profile picture and this content over here. So the next thing we'd want to show is actually the user's name and the user's description, right? Or bio description, if I can put it that way. So within the profile header underneath this, so this should go underneath this profile. We should have like a view over there, and within that view we'll set up like the styles for that view. So the style is going to be styles dot info container. So what we're going to need here is just these two text fields. So this is going to be profile dot username, and the next one that's going to go underneath over there is going to be called bio description. And remember, this data is coming from like our actual mock data, right? So basically that's what we need. We can then go ahead and actually set up like our style for that. So we can say styles dot username, and we can actually also have style, which is going to take in styles dot so this is should be description or bio description. Let me just call it bio description. And yeah, that's basically what we need there on that info section. And then underneath there we'll have like another view which is gonna store our actual follow button and our message button. So in here we're gonna have this style. So this is gonna come from styles dot action container, and within these actions container we're going to have two buttons, but how we're going to set it up is we'll just use like a touchable opacity. So this is just going to use React Native's touchable opacity, and within our actual touchable opacity we're going to have like a text field which is going to be follow, and we're going to use the same thing down over here which is just going to be then message. So if I go ahead and actually now save this, you'll see these stuff over there, right? So now let's actually set up like the stylings for that. So before I actually like carry on, let me just set up like the style classes for these touchable opacity. So what I'm gonna pass over here is just the styles dot, so it's styles dot button, and then actually set up like a background color. So the background color is going to be set out to this hex over here. And the same thing we're going to need for this button, but we're just going to change the hex code for the color of that next button. Okay, so basically these are the two things that we're going to need, but now we can just move on and actually go ahead and create the stylings for that. So first thing we're going to need is our info container. For our info container, we'll just set up like our margin top is going to be 16 pixels, and our row gap is going to be set up to 4 pixels, right? So the row gap is going to be the gap between these two text fields. So you can see over now it's actually spread out nicely. And then we also want to set up like a username. So for our username, we want to set up like our font size, which is going to be 16 pixels, and our font weight will be set up to 500. That's all we're going to need for that one. Underneath that, we're going to set a bio description For our bio description, we'll just change the color, and the color we're going to use is this hex code, and set a font size of 14 pixels. Alrighty, so that's what we're gonna have for that next one. Then underneath that, we're gonna have our actions container. So for this, we're gonna set it up to flex direction, which is gonna be set up to row. Column gap is gonna be 10 pixels, and our margin top over there is set up to 16 pixels. Okay, so basically we have that now. Next thing is now our button, for our actual button, right? Because both of those buttons have like some sort of like common stylings. So what we're gonna need is just a button border radius of 8 pixels, padding vertical padding of 10 pixels, our background. So we don't need to set up like our background color because each one has its own unique background color. So our width for this is going to be set up to 48%. So that's going to be our width. We want to align our items to center and justify our content to center. So if we go ahead and actually save that, you should be seeing this button. And within this, we'd want to set up like some sort of text. So what we'll need for this is to actually set the style. So this is going to be our BTN text. So this is styles.btn text. So for BTN text over here, so our font size is going to be 14 pixels, and our color is going to be set up to our actual white color. That's going to be for actual fonts. So if I go ahead over here and actually copy this and just paste that there. So, but the only thing that I'm going to change for this next, the second button, which is our message button, is actually change the color. So that color is going to be set out to a black color instead of a white color. So basically that's how that one is gonna look like. And yeah, this so far this is looking all good. What else do I want to set up? So in my profile, because I've got this grayish background that I don't like, so what we're gonna change it to is to a background color of white. So this is going to be a white background color, and this should be looking a bit proper. So this is looking all nice now. The UI is looking all nice to my that's just my opinion. Okay, so the next thing we'd wanna create is our actual discover. So these are the actual people you may know. So let me just go ahead and actually remove this console log. So underneath here, so just underneath here, what I'm just gonna need to do is create my actual people you may know. So this is gonna be coming from const. So this is gonna be discover data. So this discover data is gonna be coming from discover people JSON. And what we're gonna need for that is discover people, and also set discover people. Then right here, I'm just gonna say discover data. So that's what I'm gonna pass it. Alrighty. So what I can also do is say this should only render if that discover people, right? So if this data is not null, okay, so I'm just gonna set it to an empty array. And discover people dot length is greater than 0, and we wanna then set up something. So what I'm gonna do is discover people, or people you may know, whatever text that you would like. So that's what I'm going to set up over there. So we're going to have just a text field, which is going to be called discover people. Alrighty. So what do we then want to create, right? So this should be like in a horizontal scroll. So how we're going to go about doing that is we'll use a flat list. So we'll just use a flat list. So React Native's flat list. So what do we need within that flat list? So the first thing is we want to pass in like the data. So this data that's going to come in now is going to be called discover people. So that's the first thing we're going to need in there. And this should be actually wrapped up in a view. That's why it's actually complaining, right? So this is going to be wrapped up in a view. So we're going to set up a horizontal. So this is a flat list, right, which is a horizontal scroll. That's why we're setting horizontal to true. And then we want to set up like our item separator component. And for this item separator component is we're just going to use a view over here. And within this view, we're just going to set a width of that view to like 10 pixels. So the width of this view is going to be set up to 10 pixels, and this should actually separate our actual items. So, okay, currently we won't be able to see anything, but if we go ahead and actually set up like our render, and we do an arrow function, and we just use a text field over here. So if we was to just say 1, right? So you should be actually seeing this, although you won't be able to actually scroll, but you can see that we're actually showing like the items in a horizontal view. So we're going to go ahead and actually try to fix this up. So we're going to use discover component. So let's see. So with this discover component, we actually haven't set out anything. So we'll set up this discover component and now go back and just utilize this discover component. Okay. So now just going to import this. And now you can actually see that we can actually scroll through these components. So what we want to do is also destructure this render item. So what we're going to need over here is just the item and the index. So the reason why we need the index is so we can set out the key. So the key is going to be set out to index. And then we also want to set up like our actual config. So for our actual config, what we're going to pass in is our actual item. So let's see, we can actually just pass it our actual item instead of having this Okay, so this is just going to be set up to item. And yeah, that's basically what we need. So now we can go ahead and actually style up that component. Okay, so what we need to do for our actual discover component is we're going to have a profile picture, the username, the number of mutual friends, and a follow button. So that's what we're going to need within that component, right? So the first thing is we're going to create our const styles, which is our style sheet from React Native, create. And here we're just going to pass in our styles.discover container. So that's the first thing we're going to need over there. We're going to utilize our image. So this image, we just need to import that React Native image. So the source over here, it's going to use this URI. So the reason why we're using this URI is because this image that we're using are actually served from the internet. So that's why we're actually using that. But if you're actually using like a local image, you'll just pass in like require and your actual path to that actual image. So what we're gonna need is our config over here. So we need a config. So with this config, we're gonna pass in config.image. So if we go ahead and actually save this, we shouldn't be seeing anything. So here we should have like an input. So not input, a text. So that text field should be for our actual username. The next one should be for the number of mutual friends. And underneath that, we should have like our actual button, which is going to be using like our actual touchable opacity. And within our touchable opacity, we'll just use a text over here. And this is going to be follow. So we should be already be seeing some stuff. So in here, we'll have config.fullname. Then config, we'll use config dot mutual friends. What did I call it over here? So if I just go here, just say config.mutual friends, and we'll just say mutual friends. So that's just the number of mutual friends you have. And if we go ahead and actually save this, what are we actually seeing? So are we getting like our actual full name? Nope. So that's passed in our actual config. So let me just try to console log my this is because I'm actually not destructuring this. So if I go ahead and actually do this, okay, that's what's causing an issue. So yeah, we actually seeing our username, our actual number of mutual friends, and that follow button. So now is the time we actually set up our actual stylings, right? But before we actually set our stylings, let's just say style. So this is going to be styles.profile. The next one is going to be style, just coming from my actual styles.username. I'm going to have style. And then this is coming from styles.mutual friends. Alrighty, so now, okay, no. Here we need to set up the styles for this touchable opacity. This is going to use styles. dot button, but this is just gonna use this array over here, or not. We don't basically need this. Yeah, and then we also gonna pass in style for that, which is gonna come from styles.btn text. Okay, so now we can save and go ahead and create those styles. So the first one we're gonna have is our discover container. So we're gonna set up like our border radius. So our border radius over here is going to be set up to 12 pixels. Our border color is going to be this. So this is going to be my border color. If I go ahead and save this, you wouldn't be able to see anything, right? So if I set the width is going to use the dimensions.get. So I want to get the screen size and just the width from that screen size, right? And divide this by 2.5. And if I do that, you should be able to see some bit of width and spacing done. So a change actually made. And then I want to align self. No. So align self. This should be set up to flex start. Okay, wanna set our border width to like 0.5. So now we should be actually seeing our actual border over there. Next thing we'd want to do is align our items to center. So the reason why we're align items to center is because by default the flex direction is set to column. So if you align items to center, it should horizontally align it to the center of that. So if I save, you should see like a certain change made over there. Want to set like our padding to like 16, which is going to be both our vertical and horizontal padding. And we don't necessarily need to set up like our flex direction because by default it's set up to column. Okay, so the next thing we'd want to do is have our actual profile object. So with our profile, we want to set up like the width of this set to 80 pixels. The height should also be set to 80 pixels. And our border radius would be half of that, which is going to be 40 pixels. And our margin bottom is going to be set up to 16 pixels. So this should then set some spacing over there. So if I go ahead and actually save this, now we see that it's starting to look a little bit pretty. Okay, so now let's go ahead and actually style like our username. So for our username, we'll set our font size. It's going to be 14 pixels. Our font weight is going to be set up to 500. So we use that 500. And our color over here is going to be a black color. So this is going to use a black color. And then we actually see some change. The next thing is going to be for our mutual friend. So here we're just going to change the color to this hex. I know, so if you'd like, you can actually also like create your global themes where you just store all your theme variables that that are repetitive. So like things like your hex colors, you can just set constant variables in your global themes folder and actually just utilize that. That should be easier than actually having to copy and paste these hex decimals, these hex codes basically. So then the font size is going to be set up to 20 pixels. Okay, so underneath that, we'll then set up like our button styles. So for our button styles, like for this one as well, you can also have like your global styles because this is our buttons should actually have like some sort of like a common styling, which is like for border radius, like the spacing between, so it actually keeps a consistent look and feel. So you can just do that to just clean up your code. But for now, I'm just gonna use this vertical. Padding vertical should be set up to 10 pixels. Background color is gonna be set up to this hex. So this is gonna be my background color. Okay. So the width is gonna be 100%. So flex direction should be set out to row. Justify content would be center. And my margin top will be 10 pixels. So my margin top should be 10 pixels. So, okay. So underneath that, I'll then set up like my BTN text. So this should be like a white color. Alrighty, so this is actually looking all proper. So now I can actually scroll through like the people I may know, which is my actual discover people. So if I go back to this page over here, I can set up like the styles for this, and maybe can just give it like a styles over here. So this would be called discover text. And for my actual discover text, I'll just set up like a font size of 16 pixels, a font weight, which is going to be set up to like a bold, right? Font weight. And I want to also set up like a margin bottom of 10 pixels. 10 pixels should be fine. And it's complaining because I didn't pass in anything. The stylings, and this should be fine, right? Margin bottom of 10 pixels. Okay. Righty. Then over here, this, so you can actually also create some inline stylings. So what I'm going to do over here is just set a margin vertical of 10 pixels. So here it's just going to be a margin vertical of 10 pixels just to, yeah. So this will give it like a 10 pixels to the top and bottom of this actual view container. All right, so moving forward to actually now creating my actual gallery. Okay, so this will go underneath here. And for that, I need to, okay, just do this. So within this, no, let me see. Do I want to put it in there? Yeah. So I want to set up like a view for that section. So this is going to be like a view. So there's going to be a styles for that. And the styles should be gallery container. So this should take up styles.gallery container. Okay, that's basically what we need. And within this gallery container, you're going to have images. So this is going to be images, and images dot length is greater than 0, and then we want to render a component if that is set up to truthy, right? So we want to map through that array of images. So we'll just say map through those arrays of images, and you'll just do all that jiggly stuff in there. So what we'll need to do is actually copy paste this. So we'll just say images. So we'll just set images. Okay. So now over there we can just say image data, or we can say gallery data, and then we just say set gallery. We can say this is set gallery, and this should be set to gallery. Righty. So what we'll then need to do is say change this to gallery, and that to gallery. And what we'll need over here is our items and my actual index. So this should be an arrow function which returns something. So this should return this over here. And what we're going to use is our actual image, which is our React Native image component. So we're going to pass in like a source and use the URI to that. And this is going to be item.image, because that's basically, no, it's not going to be items.image, because within our actual gallery, we don't have fields. It's just an array of strings, right? So we're just going to pass in items. So that's just going to be an item over there. We want to also set up like the key, which is going to be set to that index, and the actual styles for that. So the styling is going to be called styles.gallery image. Alrighty, so that should be it for now. So if I go ahead and actually save it, you shouldn't be actually able to see anything. Okay. So the first thing that I'd want to style out is the container. So that's the actual gallery container. So the gallery container. So what I need for the gallery container is set the flex direction. Flex direction is going to be set up to row. We want to set a flex. Okay, let me just do this first, right? Flex direction and margin top. And I'm just going to leave that last bit on purpose, right? Okay, we've actually started up like our gallery container, but we don't necessarily see anything for now. And the next thing we'd want to do is like our actual gallery image. So gallery image. Alrighty, so for my actual gallery image, what I'm gonna do is set up something, right? So we're gonna say a width. So for the width, we're gonna use the dimensions.get. From screen, we want to get the width of that and just divide it by 3. So, and also we want to set the height. So the height, so let me see. So we've actually set that out. So we also want to set up a height to 100 pixels. So did this actually show anything? Okay, let's see what's actually happening. So if I just console.log my actual gallery data, let's see what's happening. So gallery, oh, this is because it's coming from, okay, it's not coming from gallery JSON. Okay, so now if I go ahead and remove this, we should be seeing some images. Oh yeah, so we are actually seeing some images, right? And but we have like a certain issue that we're facing, right? And the reason why we're facing this issue is because we've set up like our flex direction to row, right? Which is just gonna set it up to that, but we're not setting up like our flex wrap to say the moment you reach like the maximum size of this container, just wrap the content. So if you use flex wrap and set it to wrap, that should wrap the images, right? Which should say the moment it tries to enter this image and sees that it cannot fit within that space, then it should actually wrap it out and display it to the bottom. But now the issue that we're facing over here is we should be seeing three images because we're saying take the screen size width and divide it by 3, right? But we actually have like some sort of like a padding left and right, which is set to 16 pixels and 16 pixels, right? So what we then need to do to solve that is actually over here and do a calculation and minus 32 pixels, right? And this alone should actually cater to say only for these dimension, which is the screen size minus 32 pixel, and just divide that by 3, and that should be able to display 3 images in that row. If I say divide by 4, it should display 4 images, and etc, etc. So I think 3 images is all good. So underneath that, we'll just set our resize mode set to cover. We'll set like our border color is going to be black, and our border width is going to be set to 0.5 pixels. And basically this is what we have. So you'll see over here when I actually scroll, you'll actually see all those images over there. And yeah, I think this is the end of the video. So if you like the video and you're new to the channel, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, peace.